Supernatural too. Unlikely encounter. After what had happened, she spent a while grieving. It felt like losing someone. She knew that she had been very lucky that it was a harmless experience, but the loss of it certainly was plenty harmful. She suffered a mild form of depression and lost interest in many things she used to enjoy. Nothing was as satisfying anymore, not even sex. It was fun while it happened, but it never left her with that aftertaste feeling that she enjoyed just as much as sex itself. How could anything ever suffice or compare to the pleasure she had experienced that night? How could anything fill that gap? She could think of absolutely nothing that can give her such an intense dose of excitement, fear, joy, suspense, lust, and pleasure, all at the same time. What source could ever give her as much attention as she had received the last encounter? The crowd, the rituals, the spotlight, the attention, the acknowledgement. She often cried herself to sleep and spent a remarkable amount of her time staring at any mirror she came across. She religiously visited the jeans shop that she was abducted from last time, and spent a while in the same changing room, calling for the couple, begging for another chance, but in vain. She repeated the same rituals every night by a big mirror she had recently bought, which dominated most of the wall by her bed until she fell asleep. She never lost hope, though she knew deep down that she had no chance whatsoever. One night, after she had done her supplications by the mirror, she fell asleep. She woke up in the dead of night, feeling the presence right by her face. She jumped up only just in time to see a figure who clearly had been there while she slept. She sprung up and tried to hold on to it as it dove into the mirror, only to bash her face on its hard surface. She cried, begging for them to come back, even for a second, but they were long gone. Her emotions were all over the place. She was so happy that whomever came to visit her from that world was obviously still interested in her. Otherwise, why would they come back? But she had doubts that there was a chance they came back to finish her off and silence her forever. She hoped they understood that she could never share any of it with anyone anyway. She would be classified, labeled, and treated as a victim of severe psychosis. She hoped it wasn't the latter, and was very devastated that she had lost a chance to negotiate and maybe open that door yet again. Days passed, and her obsession only grew stronger. She no longer thought of anything but the couple, that world, the mysterious mission that she was meant to fulfill. She continued to practice her rituals, hoping that they were the reason behind the last visit, though she added one new ritual, which was pretend to be asleep until it was daylight when she fell asleep uncontrollably. Many nights passed, and she kept hope until she finally had her long desired visit. She was in her bed, facing towards the mirror. It was dark, with the faint glow of the moon through the window. Details were hard to examine, but not as hard to see. She noticed about 6 figures emerge out of the mirror, 3 followed by another 3. Then a A couple more joined in. They were all in long, dark, creepy, Dracula-like capes. It was scary, but also so cliché that she found it comical and chuckled to herself despite the intensity of the situation. She could feel her heart racing. She would have been much less panicky if it was just the couple, or even only one of them. She wondered why a group this time. Why are they here? What are they going to do with her? Before she could think, they flitted and scattered surrounding her bed. Then, before she could do anything, 6 of them swiftly bent her down, gagging her mouth so she couldn't scream. Then 2 of them revealed their faces, and to her relief, it was a couple. They didn't seem like they were there to connect or say hello. They looked hostile and somewhat mad or disappointed at her. They climbed on the bed, tore her clothes off with some sharp claw-like rings they had on. They said, "We will take back your memories of us, and you will never see us, hear from us, remember us, speak of us, or even think of us ever again." Her eyes widened in horror, and she felt totally heartbroken. But there was no time to sulk or cry. She started resisting, squirming, kicking, and violently twitching like she was having some sort of neurological fit. She was fighting with all her might against those who were pinning her down. She tried to bite the hand that was gagging her. She really wanted to speak. She hadn't planned what words she would use, but despite that, she protested against her restraints like an angry, rampaging bull. She was a tiny little thing, and a very slim, fragile, and delicate-looking figure, but she was damn feisty when she needed to be. She would scream in a muffled no. She had obviously no intention to let them get on with it. Over her dead body. But no matter how feisty she was, there were 6 of them pinning her down, plus the couple. There was no way she could break herself loose. She caused some damage and loads of muffled noises, bashing and crashing and hurting the hand that was gagging her. When this ruckus went on for longer than they had anticipated, the man sat on her and slapped her hard. She stopped resisting, and tears ran down the corners of her eyes. He grasped her by the jaws and said to her, while his nose was almost touching hers, "Stop. That was your choice, remember? You chose to leave us, our people, our world, and we are here to grant that wish of yours." She shook her head with her eyes full of tears, begging for forgiveness. But he said, "We're afraid it's too late for second chances." He then said, "Now we retrieve our blood." She was petrified, but had the feeling they were not intending to physically harm her, which was somewhat comforting. Then she heard them speak in that language of theirs, saying we must hurry up. It's almost daylight. The man said, "Hand it over." It was some sort of plant that they held right by her nose, while she had no choice but to breathe in its scent. She started feeling dizzy and high. She felt so relaxed and could not resist at all. They loosened their grips on her, and she was no longer gagged. They tied her up and dangled her upside down by her feet, then squeezed her nostrils and jaws, forcing her mouth wide open. She had no idea what she was dangling from, but she could hardly see straight. Then they got something out of what looked like a lantern. It appeared to be a snake. She really feared snakes. She only ever saw them in her worst nightmares. Then the group recited some stuff and shoved it in her mouth. She convinced herself she was hallucinating, otherwise she would probably die of horror. She felt the snake going deeper in her mouth, completely filling up, and then deeper. She panicked so much that she lost consciousness. She woke up dizzy, like she was very badly hungover. She tried to eat something, but threw it up as soon as she took the first bite. She filled up the bath with warm water and laid in it, trying to gather her thoughts and remember what she did last night. All she could remember was going to a work social, but anything after that was a complete blur. In the bath, she could almost see flashes of strange events, but they were so unrealistic in her mind, none of them made any sense. She didn't doubt they were flashes from a dream she must have had. When she realized that the night of that social was weeks ago, she freaked out and went to the hospital. She took some tests, didn't make any sense. Weeks were gone for her memory, and she had no idea why or how. All the tests came back normal, and there was no medical explanation of her memory loss. But what could she do about it that all the doctors couldn't? She went back to her life as it was before the night she met the couple, but always felt a devastating void inside of her, which she longed to have filled. The flashbacks never left her, or rather, she never left them. Her curiosity was wilder than she could ever hope to keep a leash on. A few days later, she went to the gym to have a swim. She was such a terrible swimmer and could barely paddle. She didn't learn when she was a child. She had only ever been to the beach on 2 previous occasions, a couple of summer afternoons, before she had started her swimming lessons a few months back. That was the main reason she had developed a slight fear of water, but she was determined to conquer it and become a good swimmer somehow. It was very quiet in the swimming pool area. There was hardly anyone around. It was way too late in the evening for anyone to be thinking about a swim. Most people would be having a drink and chilling after dinner, if not fast asleep already. Eventually, she was all alone in the vast swimming pool, and she, of course, as dumb as ever, decided to take a risk and swim in the deep end to give herself a little challenge. She relaxed and laid on the water surface on her back, watching the ceiling and floating peacefully, letting the water carry her to wherever it pleased. She closed her eyes, and after a few seconds, she had a vision of a snake enter her mouth. She jumped, gasping loudly from shock. She sank under the water, and of course tried to reach the floor of the pool with her feet, but it was nowhere to be found. She had drifted too far on the deep end of the pool, and realized she must be drowning. She struggled and struggled, but felt herself losing control, and so her life flashed before her eyes, including her experience as a couple. She saw it all in her mind in mere seconds, while the light from the surface slowly but surely became distant and dim. Next thing she knew, she was lying on the floor by the pool, with a girl giving her mouth to mouth, which straightaway triggered a vision from that night at the pub. She couldn't see the face of the girl, as she was blinded by the bright ceiling lights that were obstructing her vision of the girl hovering over her. She then let a loud gasp and coughed a lot of water out. The girl helped her while hissing at her, calling her a stupid girl. Once she stopped coughing out water, the girl sounded the alarms. Lots of staff lit in, filling the hall, and her savior vanished amongst them. For some reason, she felt a strong connection with that girl and tried to grab her arm, asking her to please stay before she vanished. But that didn't stop her. She was gone in an instant, though her voice was still echoing in her mind, as it sounded so familiar, regardless of the hissing. She woke up in the hospital bed the next morning. Her memories were clear as day. She remembered everything, every tiny detail, and was almost certain she was saved by the girl from that night. She hoped that she was right about her hunch. She was discharged from the hospital later that afternoon and started putting a plan together to find a way into the mirror. On her way back from the hospital, she bought a big, sturdy pet cage, a strong padlock, and a few scented candles. She wanted everything to be ready before night time. If she was right, and the girl was the one who saved her, then she would most likely come back to check on her later. She now knew that the couple only ever appeared at night time, never in daylight. Not so far anyway. She also remembered when her last visitors were concerned that daylight was fast approaching. So she got on with her preparations. She took a warm bath, then lit the big scented candles. Then she placed the big cage right by the mirror. She put on some drumming tunes, dimmed the lights, and got into the cage. She locked it with a padlock and put the keys on a chain around her neck, then hid it beneath her gown collar. She then waited patiently, and to her surprise, she was absolutely right, and somewhat wrong too in her predictions. Someone did come to check on her, but it was not a girl. It was a man. He walked in and saw the stage she had set up. He kept his cool, which didn't surprise her. He never really seemed that fazed about anything before, though she noticed there might be a hint of amusement in his face and body movement. She said, "I knew you were coming." He replied, "Hmm, so we take it you still remember everything." She said, "I think it was my near-death experience that shocked my memories back into my brains. Never thought I'd be so grateful I almost died." He said, "Well, that's a problem we will need to fix, but we can see you made some preparations. It is certainly amusing that you thought this cage would stop us from reaching you, but we will let you celebrate your imaginary victory for now, and dealing with you will have to wait for another time." Then he headed towards the mirror, saying, "Well, until we meet again." She intervened loudly and begged him not to go. She added that she had something to say and to please give her just a couple of seconds of his time. He hesitated for a little while, then said, "Let's hear it. You have 2 minutes max." She said, "I am so incredibly sorry. I was high and had no idea what I was doing. I certainly did not want to leave. I was so confused why I was gone. I tried so hard to get back, but couldn't. Please give me another chance. I beg of you. I will do absolutely anything. My world feels so small and too empty now. I can't bear it. If I can't learn more about you, be with you, or of use to you, then next time you're here to deal with me, you might as well just kill me instead of stealing my memories. Then she burst out crying. He was quiet for a couple of minutes, then rose up and got closer to her cage, in which she was kneeling down. He stood looking down at her while appearing to be considering her words. He then said, "Do exactly and precisely as we say, not a tiny bit less, not a tiny bit more. This is not going to be easy, and there is a big price for your betrayal. You will need to endure our punishment and regain our trust." Her eyes lit up in hope and joy that she might be given a second chance, and replied at once without a thought, "Anything you say, I'll do anything." He said, "Impressive. It hasn't been even 1 minute, and you already made a mistake." She was shocked and confused what on earth it was that she did. She just agreed to his words. Then he continued saying, "You spoke before us without being told. Who said you could speak back at us? Did we allow it?" She realized what he meant, but was in panic, not sure if she should reply or stay quiet. But she certainly couldn't make up her mind, and so ended up being quiet, even if not by choice. He said, "Hand us the key at once." She took the key off her neck as quickly as possible and handed it over with both her hands as a sign of respect. He opened the cage and nodded at her to get out. She crawled out on her forwards and started standing, but remembered his words. It has to be exactly as he said, nothing more, nothing less. So she crawled a little further, then sat by the open cage door, looking up at him. He tapped his feet and pointed on the floor right in front of him. So she crawled to the very spot he pointed at. Then she sat there. He walked to the mirror while she watched him, worried he would disappear again. He put his arm and head through the mirror and got them back out. There was a metal collar attached to a chain. She gulped while staring at it and watched him come closer towards her. He put the collar around her neck and tugged at it, so she stood up. Once she was stood, he whispered in her ear that she will be harshly punished for her betrayal. "Now come," he said, tugging at the chain and walking towards the mirror. She looked down at her bare feet, silently asking his permission to grab her shoes, but he tugged harder, denying her request. They both disappeared in. As she walked through, she could see a crowd. The strong lights from behind the crowds almost blinded her and made it impossible for her to see their faces. He walked her through the crowds, and she followed, while occasionally hearing some angry, disapproving cries from various directions. She felt like some sort of criminal from the Middle Ages being disgraced publicly before executed. But she reminded herself that if that's the price she had to pay to learn more about that world, hopefully be part of it, then she must endure it. At least in this world, the crowds had a reason to be mad at her. treat her like an outcast, not just mad for the sake of it, like the ones from hers. They stopped where it appeared to be the very center of the place. It was the very spot where she had left before, but this time there was no soft hide, no being gently carried around. It was a long walk, barefoot, on hard surface. He sat on what appeared to be a big throne, and she stood before him, eyes on the floor, waiting for his next command. After a few seconds of that silence, where she felt hundreds, maybe thousands of eyes fixed on her, he said one word, and one word alone. It was strip. To be continued. Cleopatra.